Well, hi, I'm Ollie Olson, Swedish mixer, producer. I mix here a lot, X-Level Studios, where we're at the moment. But then I mix in different places in Sweden and in England and in the States. I started my career a little bit here in Sweden in the late 80s. But then I moved to Los Angeles, and then I worked there in the early stages of the G-Funk era, hip-hop. There I worked with Ice-T and Coolio, ECE before he passed away, Tupac. My first session I did with a band called OFTB. And that was back in 91, I think, or 92 or something. And the owner of the studio asked me if I could, we had worked all night, and then he asked me if I could come in and just do, sit as a first engineer. And I worked as a second engineer on the studio. Going from being a second engineer to a first engineer takes a lot of time. And you have to work at a bunch of different studios. And I was like, okay, I saw an opportunity and I jumped. And I said, absolutely, cool. So what do you want me to, what kind of music? And he's like, it's hip hop. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be awkward. I'd never worked with hip hop, and I barely listened to hip hop back then before that. So, I was honest with him. I said, I don't know if I can do it. And he's like, yeah, I already told him that you worked with everybody. I'm like, okay. So I called up the engineer who was sick, and I said, what should I do? What should I think about? He's like, well, just turn up the kick and turn up the bass, and go from there, and then just fly by your own radar. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I put the reel on. It was running on a 2-inch machine, and I put the reel on and turned up the bass and the kick drum, the 808, and 4 guys shows up at the door and it's like, oh yeah, the man knows the shit, and just walked out. And I was like, okay, but what about the rest of the instruments? And I just made it happen, kind of try to figure out musically how it's going to work. And the producer comes in a little bit later and he's like, yeah, really nice, cool. Let's print that and then let's record another song. And that's the first time I met Ice-T as well. So that was my first day, kind of, in the studio. And then that song that we tracked that day ended up on the Above the Rim album that sold 9 million records. And hence hip-hop for the next 3 years. So it was pure luck that I started there. But one main thing was learn how to mix bass. That was the idea. The idea was to have their cars move without using any gas. They're just going to bounce on the street forward, propelled by the bass frequencies. When I mixed the Loreen album, for instance, I mixed 4 songs on that album, and I was called up by the producer of those 4 songs by the name of Ollie Olson. It was kind of an interesting mix session because we worked in a completely different way than usually. Because usually, when I mix, I get the song and maybe a reference mix of some sort, and then I tweak from that, or I get the files, just the files, and I put them in my own arrangement and start from the beginning. But here, it was a little bit different since he had been doing a little bit of pre-mixing on a 2-track just straight out of the box. And so then we came here and then we split up the whole thing, sort of put them out in different outputs on the board and tweaked them. And then since he knew that he was going to continue production during mixing sessions, we bounce down through the board certain instruments just to get the flavor of the board or the outboard gear. And then of course we tweaked with plugins as well, because since there are certain things that are very easy to do in the plugins, for instance, you can automate EQ settings or automate effect settings. It's nice to have that opportunity and the possibility to do that instead of be fixed at one thing, which is the good thing with the board, is that you are fixed and you get a sort of a character of the sound. But with the plugins you can be more surgical and you can tweak and do filter sweeps or whatever. So we did a bunch of those things here, so we could sort of utilize both the plug-in advantage but also the board advantage. I'm not very interested in gear, and that be solid gear or plugins or software or whatever. To me, music is the most important, and that's the song, and that's the deliverance of the song. And I think that whatever gear that gets me to my end result, I'll use it. I think the most important gear that I have that's my ears. I think that a lot of people also they focus on gear, and they focus a lot on detail, which is very important. Detail is very important, but the overall sonic picture is the most important thing. That's the thing people are going to notice when they listen to the song. Does the vocal sound good? Is there a groove to it? Is there a feeling or a sense of belonging within the track? That's what's going to translate into people. That's going to communicate. And I think it's all about communication. But of course I have my favorite things that I use. And I have a bunch of different hardware things. For certain things I love to track on the SSL console, and on certain things I love to track on a Neve console, because you get two different kind of characters. And then for plugins, I use a lot of the Oxford EQs. Because I think they're very transparent, and they have a really nice high end. They have enough character to have a character, but it's not getting in the way of the sound. Which of course makes them not suitable if you want to make really crazy effects, because it's not going to be that kind of thing. But that's not what you want to use them for. They're surgical, they're really nice, they're open, and they're focused. And that's what I really like about them. I might use some other plugin underneath to kind of create a character, and then I use that to sort of solidify that character and bring that character forward, because I know that the Oxford EQ is not going to diminish that character, it's just going to enhance it. And the inflator is really nice. I mean, that's a crazy plug, but that's like all, like those kind of plugins that are, it's like, it happens something nice when you put them on. I don't really know what happens. Warmth and a nice overall feeling. Yeah, when I mix, and I think that a lot of people do that, they use a lot of like parallel compression, for instance, or parallel buses. But what I use when I mix in the box, I try to use that even more, and I use several different plugs or buses that I send to, just to create the adhesiveness of a board. That since this crosstalk in between all the different channels in a board, and you're not going to have that in the computer. So I try to create that by sending certain things to different reverbs or delays or small things that's going to sort of end up like a little glue thing that I can just push up underneath to have them sort of meld together, instead of being, because that I think is the one thing that I don't like about, and my colleagues in the world can say, and I have some of them are the best in the world, and they are really great at mixing in the box, and they say it's much better than mixing in the box. And I, in a way, yeah, because you can go back and you can do recalls really quick and really fast, and you can continue working on a song for a long time without actually losing momentum in a way. But that's what I kind of like mixing on a board, because when you're done, and you get the adhesiveness because of the crosstalk, and there are hums and there are buses and things. We talked offline earlier that I was using one little plugin that is a really sort of a replica of an old tape delay, that actually has that sound. And sometimes I just put that underneath, and I don't even throw anything in it. I just keep a little bit underneath. But the thing is that if I take it away, it's like I lost sort of a dimension in the mix, or a depth in it.